People talk about the sound of tape, but there are actually many different sounds. Let's take a listen to our dry mix, and then add the tape plugin across all channels in the default setting. It already sounds better, and we haven't even done any adjustments to the tape plugin. So let's start by listening to our kick drum. Tape type A, B, and C all have different sound qualities to them. Let's exaggerate our amount knob all the way up to 10, and I want you to listen to the difference between the three different types of tape. Notice that I kept my tape speed at 15 IPS, which is inches per second. 15 is going to give us a nice low bass response, which is what I want for my kick drum. Were you able to hear it? If not, listen one more time. Notice when we get to tape type B, we're going to hear a little more fullness in the low end and the body of that kick drum. So for now, let's stick with tape type B because I want to focus on the overheads of the drums. Once again on the overheads, I'm going to bring my amount knob all the way up to 10. This time I'm going to flip the switch on the left, THD, which stands for total harmonic distortion. Basically, as the meter goes from the right side to the left side, it shows that we're adding a little more distortion. This time I want to bring my tape speed up to 30 IPS because it's going to help me bring out those high frequency harmonics in the cymbals. I'm also going to open up the sidebar and bring my master levels up a little bit and my output down a little bit. This is going to help us drive the tape a little bit harder to get a little more saturation. Now let's listen to the difference of the tape types. Tape type C is great. It seems to open up that room sound and add those additional harmonics I was looking for, but I want a little more coming from those cymbals. So this is great because we can now use our mastering grade high frequency trim to add a little top end boost. That's much nicer. Listen to our cymbals before. And now listen to our cymbals with tape. We don't have time to mix each one of the drums with tape, but I do want you to hear the drums as I bypass and re-engage the plugin. That's great. That gives a lot more character to our drums, and we didn't need to touch an EQ or a compressor. Let's see what we could do with our bass. Now our bass was recorded with both a DI and a mic'd cabinet. I'm going to start with my meter at total harmonic distortion, crank up the amount, keep it at tape type A because I want it to be a little cleaner for the direct, and bring my tape speed down to 7.5, which will give me a little more of a low bump. Drive it harder. And let's cut some of that top end. That already does a lot for our sound. So now on the bass amp, I've decided to go with a different tape type. This is going to allow our harmonics to pile up in different ways. Nice, that's a super easy way to get two signals to fit together immediately. Now so far, everything that we've been looking at has to do with mixing. But what if we want to use tape as an effect? Well, there's some good news. There's some unique options here. We have this pulse guitar. Listen to it on its own. It's cool, but it could be way more exciting. Let's crank up our amount. This time we're going to bring our tape speed down to 3 1/4. We're going to drive our input harder, lower the output, and bring up a little high frequency trim. I'm going to go with tape type C for this guitar because it's going to bring out certain harmonics that the other two don't. But did you know that you could take your speed stability knob and bring it up to control how aged your tape sounds? So listen, as we crank it clockwise, you're going to hear a little bit of a wobbliness in terms of the tone and even the pitch. It almost starts to detune. So let's bring that maybe a little more than halfway. And this time, I'm going to mix some of the dry signal back in. This is cool because we start to get a real tape flange type sound. Now, there are a few different ways that people use tape. Some people like to put it on every single track, like they're recording to an analog tape machine. Some people like to use it only on their master bus. And some people like to think of tape as being almost like in-the-box analog summing. Put it on your buses, and you could apply tape to help bring groups of instruments together. Listen to how my acoustic guitars come together when I engage tape. Without needing to touch an EQ or a compressor, all those guitars start to fit together in a unique way. Finally, let's talk about adding tape to the master bus. Now, there are a few different things you could do here. When I'm mixing something like a classical or a jazz album, typically I'll put my IPS at 30. I'm going to find that that's going to give me the most clarity and it's going to be a little more transparent. Let's try putting our IPS at 15 because it's a little more blues and rocky. We'll keep our tape type at B because we already know that's going to give us a little more bottom end. And our amount, let's back it off to maybe about 7. When using tape on a stereo signal, especially on a master bus, the crosstalk can have a lot of effect. Listen to how as I bring the crosstalk up, we're going to hear a little more punch coming out of the kick and a little more fullness coming out of the bass, just like you'd get on real analog tape. One of the best things about tape is if you use Console 1 fader, you can load it into the drive section and get hands-on control. You hear people talk about the sound of tape. However, we now know that there's not just one sound. Tape speed, head bump, distortion, transient response, hiss, crosstalk, all of these factors contribute to the sound. These are all the sounds of tape.